Encanto Hotel, which is owned by Orient Express. We are here to look at cottages 27 and 28 only.
See you, Mark. Thanks.
Only. We're going through that like nothing.
I believe these are the ones we're going to look at.
Would you state your names, please?
Patrick Eastlake, representing the owner.
Jim Lefevre with Gensler, the architect.
Courtney Miller with KOR, the landscape architect.
Okay, this is here for preliminary approval.
Then final if we can possibly get it. But
And final, if they can possibly get it. Yes.
The subcommittee has no comments on this. I think it was had been reviewed by the full board subsequent to any of the subcommittee's reviews. I don't have any notes.
All right, let's start with cottage 27. And our comments last time on 27 was the lowering of the plate heights is appreciated. Investigate the adjacency of the pine trees to the outdoor fireplace. The Commission is not seeing the level of expression and detail that should be provided at this point with respect to the roof pitch as indicated on the elevation and roof plan. Revisit the previously approved Henry Lenny elevations in terms of exterior chimney. Provide details of the exterior column and remove the exterior cabinet if possible.
okay, well, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I really appreciate your being around this late to hear us and trying to keep this project moving. In that sense, what I'd propose to do is just show you what we have done and be available to answer questions as we go.
Good.
So, first off, last issue, the exterior cabinet, which was in this area, I believe it was a vestigial water heater cabinet that was proposed, or an electrical cabinet, and it is now gone. Let me then kick over to the elevations real quickly. One thing you will find on this is that in general, with all of the cottages we're doing, and it includes this, we are going through them both as an outcome of current changes to the code as far as energy and your request to have deeper, thicker, more substantial walls. We're going to a 2x8 studded wall, which allows us to inset all of the windows and doors and give a more substantial look to the buildings. Okay, lowering the plate heights is something that has happened. We've done it consistently throughout all the projects, and it hasn't really changed. With respect to the fireplace and the adjacent pine trees, you'll see that the fireplace is gone. The fireplace was a request of a former management member of Orient Express who is no longer with Orient Express, and it just didn't make too much sense to maintain fireplaces at these cottages. So it's both this cottage and cottage 28 also had one, and it's gone there. With respect to the roof and the detailing of the roof, I don't know how it happened, but some sloppiness had gotten into our drawings. It has been, we've gone through and we've made sure that all of the pitches work, the slopes work, the clearances work at the exterior area. that one of the things that we noticed in reviewing it is that because of the way the ridge is stepped, we hadn't picked up how that stepping worked. So that's there, and then finishing up on it, and this is a very simple little building. We have gone through and detailed in the gutter system, which will be a half-round copper gutter with a round vertical tube. So we think we're very confident that this is a workable roof system. It respects the broken ridges, and at this point, one of the things that hadn't been in the set that you saw, unfortunately, was all the elevations weren't consistent. They now are. The chimney, we have gone back, looked at the Henry Lenny drawings, and we've fairly carefully duplicated the chimney as he'd shown it. It is a stucco chimney with a faceted corners, and it has a brick table that basically head height on the windows, and the stucco flares into the top of that brick table. Let's see. Provide details of the exterior column. The exterior columns are an octagonal column, which we have. What am I missing?
What page is that, please?
I haven't found it yet.
I haven't found it yet. I'll tell you as soon as I do. My apologies. Over the years of doing this project, we've continually reinvented how we want to number our sheets. It should be the last.
Got one more.
11, 12, okay. Should be on 1201, 12-1201, and it's detail 11 on that sheet. And the column is shown as a 6'3" plaster column, essentially, with an ornamental wood trim. It would be painted to match the cottage.
And that's a 1 foot diameter?
It is 1 foot across, yes. So that, yes, sir. So that, and this is the full proportion. So in cutting a piece out of the middle, we didn't truncate the detail or anything. So that is the full proportions of the column. It's not a big building. It's part of the thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So those are all the comments you'd made about Cottage 27. Would you like to discuss 27, or should we go on
No,
to
we want
28?
to continue on 27.
Okay.
Let's go back to exterior elevations, if you would.
27.09.
Thank you. keeping me honest here. Okay.
What is this?
That's a wood
beam?
beam.
What size?
It's shown as 8 inches high, and I believe it's 6 inches thick.
It appears to be 8 by 8 at this point, but
That's the
I
beam
don't-
that runs perpendicular to it. Yes. So there's a beam that goes
over
along.
the top of the columns, which
Yeah.
is this one.
That one, yes,
And this is one that ties back to the structure.
that's correct. And then there are wood rafters with a detailed end that sit across the top of the.
Oh. Any other questions?
So, yeah, I do have a question about the column. Okay, so the column is octagonal,
That's
and it
correct.
has wood trim, and the wood trim shows on the bottom?
It
Is
would all be painted.
It would all be painted, so it's plaster with the wood around the bottom.
It's just a
Any other wood on that, on the capital, or?
Well, there's a wood capital and a wood base that would
The
all be
wood
painted.
base, so that's wood and it'd be painted.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We're just
Thanks.
we're avoiding. We're essentially it's a faux stone column. We're not going to do stone. I didn't want to introduce a product like GFRC or something like that.
Mr. Chair?
Any other, yes?
Is there inspiration for that column elsewhere on site, or is this something?
This column has shown up in a number of the new cottages that we've shown you over the last couple of years, and it's been approved here and there on the project.
But nothing existing.
There's no previously existing column. It's a new vocabulary that's come in some of the new cottages.
Okay. I don't necessarily have a problem with the column. I just think it's a little, well, let's comment. Never mind.
Mr. Chairman, I think this cottage is ready to get moving and go to the consent calendar for details on these three areas, which I think are
Okay, any other
difficult.
questions?
Oh, I'm sorry.
How about the comments?
I was just trying to move this. It's getting late. I think it has. Oh, okay. I think it has some areas that need to be worked out. I think the column details, the porch beam that the chair alluded to, and the chimney. The chimney is very well drawn, but it needs to be detailed better, so that we know how. The top of the chimney has a nice detail, but the proportion. This part, the top is detailed. There's a nice detail of that. The rest needs to be dimensioned and figure out how it works. I think the column should be plastered. It should be more traditional plaster. And I think the return beam to the house. I mean it's not a traditional detail in my book.
The which?
Well, the return beam, going to the house. Going to the structure. Yeah, that one there.
Oh, yeah.
I think that should go away. But the rest is a simple cottage. The windows the openings are recessed. I think it's pretty good. It's pretty good. That's. I would move to do that if there's no other strong.
Mr.
comments.
Suding.
Just agreeing with Commissioner Peugeot on the chimney. I think the chimney needs some restudy, actually. The proportions are exact.
Yeah.
This brick table needs to, I think, drop down a little bit, and then the tapers need to work out there. The other comment I have is that this light fixture above this door isn't quite working there. It's a little too big. Perhaps it's something that is off to the side as opposed to trying to squeeze it in above
Well,
the
I
head
think-
of the door.
He had two sizes, and that got chosen for that. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
Maybe it moves around.
It
Maybe it's not that big.
Above is fine, but it's just too
That's
large.
too
and
big. Yeah, if you're going to put it above, it's too big.
Those of you who've worked with Henry Lenny probably know that he tends to draw things big.
Mr. Chair? This is
Yes, sir.
And a comment, or maybe not. I'll just say it anyway. Would these elevations profit from recessing the windows as we were want to do in Mission Village? They seem to be. I think that the idea of those shadows, the recessed windows, is a really great design feature, and there's something about it removes it from just another cottage. It puts it sort of squarely into the El Encanto way of doing things, and I think that could be explored.
There has been an attempt to recess them. We have gone to a 2x8 stud. Some of the windows on the end have the tapered sill. Others just have a deeper recess.
We had in our other subcommittee meeting of Mission Village, we talked about not having 2x8 studs everywhere, going to 2x6, saving some money, saving a great deal of space. However, choose one or two locations where a window could be recessed a foot, 14 inches, and not pay the penalty inside.
I think that's a great idea. The 2x8, unfortunately, is partly a response to what you folks are asking for. It's also essentially a requirement for the new energy code that we need to, in order to use bad insulation in these walls as the sole insulation, it has to be a 2x8 stud. This is the other alternative is to go to a 2x6 or 2x4 and then put a continuous foam on the outside, which would get you close to 2x8 again. So I think you're going to start to see more walls and wood frame construction that are just this thick. If there's a specific feature window that it would make sense to develop it, we could look at that.
Right.
But, you know, what we are doing is we're working with the rules that we're given. And
Well, we
in this
we
case,
make
the code
suggestions,
rules.
We don't
yeah.
give rules.
No, I'm just referring to the code rules in terms
I
of
know,
wall
I know,
thickness.
but
yeah.
still,
Yeah.
to splay a windowsill out 2 inches is hardly, it's a lot of work and effort and cost for no benefit. To extend this wall nearer the door and recess that window back another 4 inches and splay it then, you gain an incredible amount of drama with no additional cost. But merely to slope the sill on a few windows that you're not going to see, that's what we're trying to get the Mission Village people to do also.
I understand that entirely. As I'm looking at this particular plan, without dwelling on it, even this is the entry elevation with the porch and the feature. We have obviously the 2 double doors as we come up to it. We have a secondary window in the bathroom. This might be a window as an opportunity.
Thought about that, yeah.
And these 2 face an interior courtyard to the back.
Well, then, bringing that wall out another 10 to 12 inches into the room.
Yeah.
Those little serendipitous things are far more important than having all these windows recessed another 2 inches across the board.
Okay.
Richard, can this be handled at consent?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Can we make separate motions or wait for the next one? Okay.
Yeah, we do want to look at the landscape.
Okay.
No, I in total agreement there. I'll take care of it. Or you'll take care of it.
Okay, the landscape plan actually did not really change much since the last time you saw it. As I understand it, the only comment pertaining to landscape was really the fireplaces, and those have been removed. So now we just have enclosed courtyards with brick paving, and that's it. Another thing is we did have 2 risers on this walk, and those have come out.
You didn't need them.
Did not need them,
Yeah.
correct.
Again, this is our code officials working with us, so that we need to have an accessible entrance.
Mr. Chair, question.
Yes, Phil.
What is this here? Is that a wall?
I don't think so. Don't know why there would be a wall. I'll have to check on that. I don't believe it's a wall.
I don't see
It-
any
it
reason for the wall.
May
there,
just
so
be a layer that's on.
vestige of something. Okay.
It may be a vestige. There was a time, and I hate to bring up sore subjects with the Mission Village, the retaining wall that kind of snaked down the hill.
It wasn't.
I don't think it got that far. It did come down a ways. We are aggressively minimizing that wall.
Okay, great.
So,
Okay. That's the only question I had, so
Landscape is fine.
with the exception of that extraneous line.
Okay, the concerns I have for Cottage House, whatever it is,
Cottage
27,
yes.
is the column detail needs to be restudied. To have wood trim on a plaster column exposed to the weather is, especially where it gets hosed off every day at the bottom, it doesn't work. So it should either be all plaster or possibly, as you had suggested, maybe to have 4 different trades build this column maybe just a prefab stone column or something would be less expensive and certainly more practical. But it's up to you.
Would a GFRC raise anybody's hackles, do you know?
What's GFRC?
Glass, fiber reinforced concrete.
It does look like concrete on the outside.
Yeah, it does.
You
Stay
want the
with
alternative.
It's a half an inch thing, and it has a foam on the inside, usually to
So that's
mold it.
fine.
Yeah, it looks like concrete for all practical
But
purposes.
it's finished to match the building. or
Yeah.
It just has a texture.
Yeah, the only thing you have to figure out is how you deal with the seams.
You'll never get rid of the seam, and they show.
Okay, so that's the issue. Because the issue comes in two pieces. You know?
I think it sounds like maybe we'll look at possibly simplifying the detail a bit and doing it in plaster.
Well, if you plaster over, yeah.
That's fine.
I
Okay.
don't think prefabricated.
We had concerns about the column detail. The chimney should have a lower brick table. The horizontal beams radiating from the lintel beam is inappropriate and should be removed. Recess window parentheses S, at least one and hopefully two.
To what thickness, Don?
Oh, 12 to 14 inches. He's got a lot to play with in there, even more than that, actually. And on the landscape plan, to remove that wall line, whatever it is.
Just say the wall connecting the two patios.
And there's an attic in this, right?
It's a flat ceiling above.
So you're
there's
going to
an attic
have
space, yes.
some vents,
Yes, that's correct.
eve or,
It's O'Hagan vents in the.
well, we've got fire issues,
Yeah,
obviously, too.
yeah,
But
yeah.
we would rather see vents in the gable rather than the typical.
Okay.
se-
So what we have shown is in the one end where
Oh,
we
okay.
we do have triangular vents, but that's not going to get us all the venting
No,
we
it's
need.
not.
So that we've also shown some selectively placed O'Hagan vents in the tile work.
And they're on the elevations?
Yes, they are, I believe. Okay, I apologize. On this one, they are not. They are on 28. They should have been.
These are a little low. They should be higher,
Agreed.
at least 8 inches higher. And I would repeat it over here as long as you're doing it.
Why not?
Oh, and then under normal conditions, there's no point in splaying the window base. It's going to be better to have that just recessed and
Just-
sloping for the water, but
That's a sill, yeah, just put a
Yeah.
shallow slope, you're saying.
yeah. And just like you did here
Yeah.
and here.
So what's the comment?
Eliminate the window splay.
I think one
Whoever
of-
does consent will know.
yeah, one of the comments we received before was to go back and look at the Henry Lenny drawings, and this is,
That's because they were about 1.5 feet deep. That's why he did that.
yeah.
At least a foot.
Mr. Chair, a question on the chimney, the lowering the brick table. Didn't you say something about also then changing the proportion a bit?
That will do it.
Oh, it'll,
Lowering that
All right.
down
Thank you.
makes the bulk of it above that. Okay, that's 28.
27.
I mean 27. Getting punchy here.
Yeah.
No, I think we'll do it as one motion.
Okay. Hopefully, we have a lot of carryover. Essentially, 28 is, in many ways, the same cottage. The difference is it's a two-story, two-key cottage instead of a single-story, one-key cottage. In plan, they're virtually identical with the exception of a stair and a balcony that infills the space.
Okay. Last time we said on 28, on the east elevation, let's go to that. The ridge of the dormer should not align with the ridge behind. It should be lower.
And you were absolutely correct.
Okay, number 2, provide exterior column details, which we know no.
Yep.
3, the chimney seems higher than it needs to be. 4, the south elevation roof ridges should not align per the previously approved Henry Lenny elevations. Roof edges should not align on the south elevation. The arches and doors on the exterior west elevation should more closely emulate the previously approved Henry Lenny elevation in terms of proportions. The wrought iron details need more ornamentation and character, and construction details should be shown. Diminish the depth of the balconies to more closely emulate those of Henry Lenny approved elevations. And the attic ventilation should be determined and shown on the drawings.
Okay. Okay, well, this is the dormer that we
Yes.
talked about, and it, actually in some drawings, the cap of that was actually above
Yeah,
the ridge.
it
and
was, yeah.
It's no longer,
That's fine.
and it
Okay.
never should have been there. Okay, columns are the same as we've just discussed, so I assume the same comments will apply.
Yep.
The chimney is 2 feet above the ridge, and I think
That's fine.
code minimum.
Mhm.
South elevation ridge lines should not align. They don't, and I would like to point out that while they are relatively close, because they're fairly separated in plan, you'll never really perceive them to be that close. Arches and doors. We've gone back and looked at the Henry Lenny drawings. I actually have some copies of them here. The proportion of the arch really hasn't changed. What did change is when we went to the ADA acceptable door, he'd shown a double 2.0 door here, which, we can't get through the city. So when we showed that, it made them look stumpier. So we did talk to Henry about how to handle it, and what his suggestion was, we did 2 things. We actually have decreased the diameter of the arch a fuzz, and it produces a little shoulder defect at the top of the column, slightly increasing the sense of verticality. And then we've introduced a plaster lunette that's in the wall above the door itself, and that just sort of, again, gets things looking a little bit more vertical in the area of the door. And we're just sort of trying to balance, the proportion of the bays and the shape of the columns had never really changed. It was when we changed the shape of the door behind it that it graphically looked unpleasant. And, wrought iron details. We have 2 wrought iron details. This was a grill over one of the windows. This was shown quite schematically in the last package. What we have done now is we've gone to Cottage 7, and we've looked at a detail there and abstracted that detail, actually fairly literally abstracted that detail. And that's shown here. It's made out of half-inch round bars that got riveted connections, riveted to a flat plate that's splayed at the end, a little detail at the top. So this is one that we can reference elsewhere on site. As far as the metal balconies, again, what we saw when we went back and revisited the drawings is that they were in fact more schematic and a little awkwardly proportioned.
Could we see that detail, please?
Yeah, just to show you what we've done. This bracket is a bracket that we've recopied from Cottage 6, and it also, a similar version of it shows up at Cottage 11 on site. What we've done also is put them at pretty much the minimum width, and then I think one of the things we were sensing as we looked at it is that to get to the code required 42 inches. It was beginning to make them look pretty vertical. So we talked to Henry Lenny about that, and his suggestion was to apply a channel around the base, which would be painted iron. And what that does is it just reduces the amount of vertical bar that you see there and brings it into a little bit better proportion. I will tell you also that in the process of looking at these, in the last version of this cottage you saw, there was a second balcony here. This is a bathroom window. It's always been a bathroom window. This was a completely faux balcony. When we went through Cottage 12 with the commission a month or so ago, we were fairly strongly recommended that not to put faux balconies on windows. This is one that the ownership can fully get behind because they're expensive. So what we are recommending is we just do the balcony where it can pay, where somebody can open that door and step on the balcony. And attic ventilation, in this case it's very hard to see. The vents are shown here on the elevation. There's 6 of them across the top. Again, the triangular vents here. Would be happy to introduce some more triangular vents here. It's a little bit of a problem to put them where we have the chimney.
Right.
And then going back to the roof plan, we also again show the location of the O'Hagans on the roof.
Any questions? Michael?
Mr. Chair, the only question I have, I mean, there's
Probably
probably
many more, but does these ornamental attic vents, you said they're non-operable, they don't go in, are they actually, they're functional? Okay.
They're functional. They're just a triangular hole in the plaster.
So they do what they're supposed to do, but in a static way?
Yeah. What I meant was that they were not adequate for ventilation.
Thank you.
I have a question about the door lunettes here. What happened? The lunette, is that just a recess, or is that?
It's a recess. You can
How deep?
see it in the section here. It's about a 2-inch recess.
A 2-inch recess. So it's just a little shadow detail.
Yeah, to
over
give it
that
a
simple
shadow line, and again to get
in
a
stucco.
sense of the thing reading more vertically than horizontally.
Thank you.
Comments?
I only have 3. I think this is looking very nice. And, I have 3 comments. And I also would like to move it to the consent calendar so it can be fixed. I think you need to. Oops. Yeah. See this little thing. I'm gonna draw. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know that the only purpose of that is to receive the return there. If you move all these 2 inches, you cut it out, and you just don't need that. That kind of simplifies your railing. Because otherwise, you're having this. It's not consistent with the others.
So you don't mind this vertical height as you approach the?
Well, I'm not sure what else to do, but it's just
Yeah.
like this is sticking out. Like
Yeah, no,
like that.
I
It's just kind of.
I struggled with. Okay.
The other thing
Okay.
is, I don't totally happy with the lunettes. I think if you take them out, I think it will draw attention. I don't really think that they do much. And this stuff, this detail, I think there are 2 ways of doing it. Traditional ways to have a beam and have some kind of a corbel termination and not have the return. That's one way. The other way is to miter the beam at the corner and go there. I mean, it will never look like that at the end. It will be an 8x8 post and usually an 8x10 beam and return. So this beam will be exactly the same as that. If you're going to go that way,
Yeah.
with the miter of the beam, that's kind of nice because it protects the top,
grain.
the top of the
Yeah,
the top of the
grain.
beam. If you want to do it the other way, then you space this accordingly, and you pull the column in, and then you have the standard detail, and then you have the other, the rafters going there, and then that's the other way. Except that it does expose this end to
The weather.
and sometimes put the proper flashes and so forth. So anyway, either way, I think is acceptable, and those are minor details, so they can go to consent.
Was that a motion?
Wait.
Not
I
quite.
have a question. How about the landscape? Did anything change with the landscape?
No.
Pretty much
No,
Actually, you
same,
could-
same design, any step change
No.
you're aware of, or
only the fireplace was removed.
removed?
You know, the plans that you just saw had both of the cottages on the landscape plan. Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
Just being thorough.
Why not?
Mr. Chair, just a
Michael.
quick comment. It's the usual. Anything that gets exposed to the sun should have some sort of sun protection. I know that the west elevation has that overhang that you were speaking of on the upstairs. Am I reading this right, that these doors with lunettes are recessed underneath also?
Yes.
So then these two windows are unprotected on the west elevation. I don't know if an awning would be proper, but it seems to be, there should be something there.
I have an idea. On the south elevation you're talking about?
Both elevations, west and south.
Well, on the south elevation, this window can be recessed 18 inches to 2 feet if you want, because that's when in an alcove next to the fireplace, similar to the one we had before. Right?
It is. I think that the interior designer had designs on that alcove, but
And I would take out that window.
the lower one.
To have somebody going up and down stairs
Oh.
beside this window
Yeah.
night and
Yeah.
day makes no sense to me.
No.
You don't need it for cross ventilation. You don't need it for anything. Light. So
Yep.
then if you recess this one and you don't recess that one, it's slightly problematic. If you recess this and take that one out, if you recess both of them, it doesn't have the punch that it needs. So that's what I would suggest.
Take the small one, bottom one out and recess the top
Yeah.
one as much as possible.
Yeah.
Well, did we mention the column? I think you know that.
Same column detail, yeah.
Same
It is the same column, and both will have the same detail all the way.
So I will move to,
Wait, excuse
for
me?
I make a motion for
I will
preliminary
sum up.
approval with all the historical findings, whatever are
We'd like some
necessary.
comments first, though.
Okay, the comments are,
Yeah, I'm gonna make, yeah.
I think the minimum wrought iron size on the window grill should be 5/8 inch.
Okay.
5/8. 5/8.
Okay. I'll spot you an inch, or an eighth of an inch.
The south elevation should have the lower window by the stairs deleted and the second floor window recessed 18 inches, which provides quite a bit of sun control. Don't put that down.
Mr. Chair, also the east elevation,
Is going to get a lot of sun.
East?
The east, yes, the sun rises in the east, and that needs to have some sort of protection on these windows. Awnings or recession, something, because they're going to get blasted. Trees.
Yeah. East isn't as big a problem as south and west.
Yeah, the east side does face back to the adjacent property, and there's a buffer of trees behind it. The west side is more exposed to the public areas. Did I say that fairly?
Correct.
Okay.
Another point is to remove the last stair plaster
Yeah.
handrail. You don't know I don't know how else to say it.
Last step. The last step of the plastic.
Last
Last stair
plaster
rail
step.
step.
Rail step.
I think whoever does consent will understand that.
I hope so.
And I think just to speak to Commissioner Drury's comment about some sun control on the exterior west on the west elevation. The east elevation has trees. The west elevation, I don't know. I think if you started adding awnings to that, it sort of destroys the character of that. So I think I know that those are tucked under, and these are tucked under. I think he's concerned about those too, and I think it's best to just leave those as be because it starts to play with the composition too much or that.
Certainly don't want to play with the composition.
Tweak the composition.
The other,
Let's wrap it up.
remember, the other comment is columns should match those on specified
Right.
on our comment.
And the 8x8 balcony beam should either be mitered back to the structure or have a cantilevered corbel detail. And that's all I have here. Column, same as the column on 27.
Did he mention the lunettes? Did you mention the lunettes? The lunettes? Did you mention the remover?
What do you want? Just to have them?
Remove.
I didn't. I was doing something else.
No lunettes.
No lunettes over the 3 first-floor French doors.
West elevation.
West elevation.
So the motion for preliminary,
West elevation.
okay, the motion is for preliminary with all the necessary historic findings. We final.
At consent.
Second.
No, we didn't vote.
We did?
It's one project.
One motion for both.
We had comments on
This
27.
motion is for
Since
both.
it's listed as both.
Cottage 27 is still going to be continued to the consent calendar? Is that what you had before?
Both buildings together go to the consent.
And then continue to consent.
For final. I think it's close enough. What do you want? Indefinite?
long, that's for sure.
2
And-
weeks or 4 weeks?
And the project will not cause a substantial adverse change in the significance of a historic resource.
So it is a 2-week continuance. The applicant will bring all those details to consent. You swear, right? Yeah, okay.
Boucher. Okay, we had a motion second for preliminary approval with those corrections to come back before consent in 2 weeks. All in favor say aye. Opposed?
Thank you all.
Preliminary approval.
Should we adjourn the meeting?
Oh, yeah, meeting adjourned.